What's up, world? It's your boy, Jaron Ikner, back again with another video for Starstruck TV. I told you I'd be back. I told you I'm back, son. I'm back. I know I took like 2 months off, but I'm back, son. I'll be dropping review videos anytime that you need them. That's what I'm here for. I also got a lot of cool content coming out, including a new movie called The Bond coming very soon, brand new album called The Setting Sun. I'm dropping a new series called Setting Sundays every Sunday on JaronIkner.com. You can get some brand new content from me. That's my ad for this video, because everybody got ads, but I'd be just plugging my own stuff. Anyways, we are back again with another reaction video. This time we're talking about the highly anticipated album, Certified Lover Boy, from the Canadian rap artist Drake. I don't know why I said he's Canadian, but I like to say that sometimes. Anyways, this album had a lot of hype behind it for a variety of reasons, mostly because it's Drake, but also because of the fact that, one, it was delayed. It was originally supposed to come out this past January, but he pushed it back. He had a full rollout behind it as well. I have a couple theories behind that I'll maybe get into later. Several delays on this album overall, and the thing about it is that when it comes to Drake always goes big in terms of having a massive single that dominates the year. He usually uses the streaming numbers cheat code, where he takes the streams from that song and rolls it into his album, which helps boost his numbers. A lot of artists do that, but he's like the one who pioneered that move. And what's different about this particular rollout is that he did it a little bit different. Like, things were just different. He didn't have the massive hit single that he usually does. He doesn't have the videos dropping and all this hype. You're not seeing Drake everywhere. This album was a little bit more reduced in terms of rollout. And to be honest, I kind of really like that, because I think what we're seeing in the evolution of music is that it's less about the hype. You can hype something as much as you want, but it's really just about just dropping it. I think Eminem kind of learned that when he did his whole rollout for Revival. And, he dropped that single and we're hating on it, and album sales just didn't do too good because of how he went into it. But now you're seeing artists like Kanye and Drake kind of shift the mindscape of what it means to roll out. Tyler, the Creator, is another example too, who, these really tight rollouts that only happen within about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks or so. And, Drake, he basically geared up his rollout starting last week, really. I mean, there's always hype. We always knew that the album was coming, but he didn't even announce the release date until last week when he did the Sports Center hack. And from there, he dropped the album cover. It was a very just condensed rollout. And with that said, I think that it worked out better for him that way. And I think the reason why he did that is because, honestly, this album just doesn't have the massive hit single that we desire and crave from Drake. I think the closest song that we'll get that's going to be all over the radio will probably be I'm Too Sexy, which features Future, which is, a pretty cool flip of the Right Said Fred song, I'm Too Sexy, back in the 90s. The two bald-headed dudes say I'm. Pretty cool flip. I appreciate the genius of that flip, and that song probably will be the most marketable. What's interesting about this is that he didn't put his songs Laugh Now, Cry Later, or Cry Now, Laugh Later, and then also What's Next. Those are the two big singles that he dropped in the past year. Neither one of those songs are featured on the album, which makes me think that the album went back to the shop to get retooled. I think this is my theory, basically. I think that when he started to roll out Certified Lover Boy back in January, basically what happened was they just could not find that hit single. They dropped a bunch of stuff around that time. He had that War single where he was doing the drill thing, which is a terrible song, by the way. He had the Tootsie Slide, you know what I'm saying? And then he did the dark demo tapes, right? Which kind of like made up for the Tootsie Slide. Like, he just threw that on there because clearly he was trying to attract a brand new audience with the TikTok thing, and it just didn't pan out the way that it was supposed to. Then he dropped Cry Now, Laugh Later, which is a strong song, great song, funny video, but it wasn't doing God's Plan's numbers. Keep in mind, God's Plan, I think at this point, is like 11 times platinum. It's one of the most successful songs in recent years. And when you're operating under a record label, the record labels always want you to do better than you did last time, right? You just got to. You got to either do just as good or better. And you'll see this happen a lot with a lot of pop artists, where pop artists, they fall into ruts, and you'll see them go ghost for 2 or 3 years because they're tooling and working these songs because they have to top their previous single. You see Taylor Swift do this all the time with every release that she does. And Drake is no exception. Drake is a pop star at the end of the day. And he just couldn't find the song to beat God's Plan. And I really think that's what it came down to. I think that's the biggest delay of that. And I think my proof of this is the fact that he did drop Scary Hours 2 right after he announced that CLB was being pushed back. He dropped Scary Hours 2, which had What's Next in the song with Rick Ross on it. That was another attempt to strike hot. That's the same exact thing that he did with God's Plan. Anyways, getting to this point, I think what happened is that they realized that they weren't going to have a hit single on this album. This album is a good album. It's a strong album. But there are no clear 100% genuine radio standouts on this album. Like I said, I'm Too Sexy might be the closest. There are a few other songs on this album that might get some radio play, but for the most part, the album is very reserved, very pulled back, which is surprising to me a little bit. I was expecting a little bit more high energy, but this is one of the problems that Drake has with his music, is that he's always trying to find this balance between soft R&B crooner and tough guy rapper. He always tries to walk this line. I think he made a misstep when he dropped Scorpion, because Scorpion was basically a attempt to cater to both of those fans. Like, he had the hard raps on one side, and then he had the soft crooning stuff. And what happens with Drake, and this is not his fault, but what happens with Drake is that Drake is Drake is the most successful rapper in recent years, past decade. It's Drake. But Drake also has an artistic ceiling in terms of his musical expression. He's not going to be rapping over weird samples or doing anything like that. He's just going to pick good beats that sound good. And honestly, with God's Plan, that song, he got kind of lucky with that song, to be honest. I mean, it's a strong song, but it was a combination of marketing, the video, and all this stuff that made that song work. But when I think about when Drake takes risks, that's when we get the best Drake, in my opinion. That's when we get songs like Passion Fruit or Hotline Bling, or even Headlines when he first dropped. These are songs that shifted the sonic platform of what we're doing. When he dropped Hotline Bling basically brought out the tropical twerk songs, is what I call those songs. All these like kind of Caribbean-inspired boppers that started with Hotline Bling. And with God's Plan, that song was just a mega massive hit. But when I look at this album, I'm on my third playthrough on this, so this is not my first reaction. This is like my after look. He dropped the album late last night. I listened to it last night and I went to bed. Now I listened to it this morning. I'm on my third playthrough. So this is not my first reaction. This is just reaction. But there's just nothing that really stands out to me in terms of like a song that is going to dominate the rest of the year. But it's not to say that the album's not bad. Songs like Fair Trade, Love All, No Friends in the Industry, Erase My Mind are all really cool songs. And they're basically typical Drake songs. But the problem is that Drake, ever since he dropped Views from the Six, Drake has kind of fallen into this particular sonic, this soundscape that he's comfortable in, very comfortable in. He just kind of moves around and does what he does. And as a result, his albums suffer, because if this album cut out, this is 21 tracks on this album, but if he cut out, let's say 7 of them, and he could keep some of the R&B joints and then find this balance, I think this album would have been a lot more cohesive. But this album rings in an hour and 26 minutes. Champagne Poetry, the intro track, had me very excited at first, because I'm like, oh, this dude's sampling Masego, and this is dope, and he's rapping over this. Like, I thought that we were gonna get an album that was gonna show Drake's artistic growth, but basically from after that, we get typical Drake songs. You could put most of these Drake songs on any other Drake album that he's put out since Views from the Six, and you probably wouldn't know what album it was on. I think that's the biggest tell to this, that this album isn't something that is time stampable in terms of, which is good or bad depending on who you ask. But the issue with that is that, and I wasn't trying to bring up the Kanye thing, but this is the elephant in the room. There is a Kanye diss track on this album called 7 a.m. on Bridal Path. But when you listen to an album like Donda, and this is just typical of Kanye West in general, he likes to push himself past his sonic and artistic threshold and try new things and get weird sounds and weird approaches to music. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does work, it's mind-blowing. It's one of those things where it's like an artist capturing lightning in a bottle almost. That's kind of what he does with his music from time to time when he creates these particular songs that are just like mentally and cerebrally uplifting. Drake has found a pocket, and the pocket is, it's a good pocket. It's a good pocket to be in, especially if you're Drake. You're making music that people want to digest and dance to and feel good about. But this is kind of one of the issues that I've always had with Drake, is that he doesn't bring much to the table in terms of inspiring. And this album, I think, might be the most egregious into that statement, in the sense that this album doesn't make me feel anything other than just hearing Drake talk about where he's at in his world, which is fine. That's kind of why people listen to Drake, because Drake is good at rapping and he does what he does. But Drake has been through a lot, you know what I'm saying? And Drake is in a position where he can really connect with artists on a level that is, not artists, but with the world on a level that is deeper than just making good songs. Drake can possibly change lives with his music, but chooses to go the safe and comfortable route and make music that is more inward and more reflective. The problem with it is that it's really hard to relate with Drake. Drake is a multi-millionaire with multiple houses and talks about all these things with all these different women, but the average listener can't connect with it. And not to compare, because I'm going to make a video comparing Donda and CLB, but especially after Kanye turned in with the whole Christian route, he is set on making music that is designed to inspire, uplift, and make you think. And Drake doesn't do that. He just simply doesn't do that. He makes feel-good songs. He makes songs that be like, oh yeah, okay. But oh, he said that. That was snapping. But he's been doing that for a minute. And I think at this point, especially being a father and being in the position that he's in, I think there's a sense of responsibility behind him making music that's a little bit more thoughtful in the grand scheme of it, being less about him and more about the world. I'm not saying Drake should be out here freedom fighting and fighting for Black Lives Matter and all. He's not even American. That's kind of why I started this thing saying Canadian rap artist. He has infiltrated American culture to make people think that he's the best American rapper, and therefore people think that he should speak on American issues. But he's not from America. He's Canadian. He lives in Toronto, right? He's in the 6 and all that. So I don't expect that, but I kind of want that, because as an artist myself, I truly believe that the creation process and finding these new sounds and these new synapses in our brain that make us see and view the world differently is basically our job. And, Kanye West is a master at that. And a lot of that has to do with his background. He's a producer, you know what I'm saying? He's been tooled and trained by some of the greatest and most intelligent artistic artists of our time. Drake has kind of been doing it himself with 40 his entire career. And not to knock on 40 so much, but 40's production is kind of, And because of the fact that he mostly produces exclusively for Drake, 40 himself hasn't had a lot of opportunities to step outside the box and create, interesting soundscapes. And this album is great production-wise. Like, it's not a bad album. I like the beat on Fair Trade. I like Get Along Better. I like Pipe Down. I like No Friends in the Industry. I'm not even sure if he produced all these, but I assume that he had something to do with these songs. But it just feels a little, I wouldn't use the word dated. It just feels redundant. Like, we've done this before. Like, You said all this stuff on Scorpion, but you just said it in a different way with slightly different beats. You said all this on Views. And I want more. You know what I'm saying? I want more of the mind of Drake, other than just your women problems and your beef with Kanye. That's kind of what most of this album's about. It's, subbing the industry with a lot of sub bars. There's direct shots at Ye, and he talks about his female problems. There's some really cool features on here. I like the fact that there's a song with Kid Cudi. I think I may be wrong, chime in the comments, but this might be the first time that Kid Cudi and Drake ever worked together. Dope song. I like the song with Rick Ross and Lil Wayne because it has more energy to it than most of the other songs in this album. And honestly, most of this album is kind of low energy. I mean, the album is called Certified Lover Boy. I think we did kind of expect a more dialed back, lucid R&B tone based off the name alone. And so I can't really go in here expecting like head knocking bangers that just like, you know what I'm saying? But I was going on here expecting more radio hits, and there's not really a lot. Like I said, Way Too Sexy will probably be on the radio because to me, that's the only song on this entire album that has that feel. Besides Fountains. I take that back. Fountains, which is basically like a modified passion fruit type of track. That song may also hit the radio as well. But that just kind of reminded me, like, one of my favorite albums from Drake is More Life. And the reason why I like More Life is because he pushed himself to work with all these different artists from around the world, and he brought in these new sounds and tried new things. And you could feel the sense of urgency behind that album. Whereas this album, it just kind of feels like the album was due, right? He just had to get it out. Him pushing it back kind of like it is indicative of that. And yeah, I don't know. I could talk about this album forever, but at the end of the day, the album is good. If you're a Drake fan and you like Drake, you should be pretty happy with this album. If you're new to Drake for some reason, I don't think this album's gonna bring you in. I don't think this is the one. Like if you're a fan of Drake, if you haven't listened to Drake before, you should check out Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, select songs on Scorpion, select songs on all his albums really. But even this album, like there's no song on this album where I'm like, yes. On Scorpion, there were a couple. There's a couple songs on Scorpion that I listen to this day. Like, I don't know, off the top of the head, Mob Ties or Nights for What. There's several songs on Scorpion that I listen to this day that are on my playlist. On this album, I just don't see myself coming back to it. But it's not a bad album. But it reminds me of Views in the sense that, like, Views is a decent album. Like, it's not bad. It's not terrible music, but it's not mind-blowing music. And I haven't revisited Views in a second. And maybe if I go back and listen to Views, maybe I'll listen to it and like it more. But I strongly think that won't be the case. And I feel like that's going to be the case with this album as well. It's just a very mid album from Drake. Which is not bad. Like a mid album from Drake is better than 80% of the industry, to be honest. Like a mid album from Drake is always going to be like a 7 or higher. I just was hoping that after all the delays and the beef and all the yada yada that Drake has gone through, that this album would be a little bit more grandiose in its execution. I feel like he used a lot of marketing tactics to kind of hold our attention because he didn't have a hit massive single going into this like he has with every single album he's done before. His rollout's a lot different too because every single album he had before, like I said, he was dropping videos, this and that. We haven't got a video for this album yet, although I'm sure we will see several here soon. Anyways, overall, the album is not bad. I'm going to give it another listen and maybe give you guys a fuller review, but I think this review is pretty good, so I don't know. Probably not. But I am going to make another video here probably next week or so, so look for my thoughts on Donda versus CLB. You kind of got some of that in this video, but the next one I'm going to deep dive and talk about the execution of both artists and who did it better. Either way, Drake's going to do numbers. I expect this album to be number 1 and all over the charts. It probably is number 1 right now as we speak. So congratulations to Drake on Certified Lover Boy. The album is decent. If you're a Drake fan, you're in for a treat. If you're not, you're going to probably hate on it. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Your boy Jaron Ikner is back again. If you want to see more videos of me, go check out my other page, Jaron Ikner. You just spell my name out and you'll get another page where I have other videos that have short films and videos about Common calling himself gluten-free bread and all kinds of neat stuff like that. But yeah, stay tuned. Lots of new content coming. Appreciate you guys. Peace out.